The cube is simple, perfect, absolute. 6 equal faces, 8 points, 12 edges. It is the first solid, the most stable, the most fixed. In geometry, it represents form. In mysticism, it represents limit. But beneath its silent symmetry lies a truth that has haunted initiates, alchemists, and prophets for millennia. The cube is not just a shape. It is a container, a boundary, a prison. To the ancients, geometry was not abstract. It was sacred. Every shape corresponded to an element, a plane of reality, a condition of the soul. Plato described 5 perfect solids, the building blocks of the universe. The cube was earth, dense, inert, heavy. It was the house of matter, the box that held the flame of spirit. But while the sphere expands, the cube contains. The sphere is fluid, eternal, infinite. The cube is finite, rigid, cold. It marks the edges of what is known and what cannot yet be escaped. This is why the cube appears not only in geometry, but in ritual. In Kabbalah, the tree of life unfolds through dimensions and spheres, but its manifestation begins with Malkuth, the kingdom, the earth. And what is the earth? In esoteric diagrams, a black square. The foundation, the base, the cube. In Islam, the holiest site on earth is the Kaaba, the cube, a black stone structure at the center of Mecca. Pilgrims circle it in devotion, performing tawaf, a symbolic orbit of the physical around the metaphysical. But few ask, why a cube? Why this shape? Why this color? In Judaism, the faithful wear the tefillin during morning prayer, small black cubes bound to the arm and forehead with leather straps. Inside them, sacred scripture, divine memory encased in black geometric form. A message trapped in matter. The cube appears again and again in burial sites, in altars, in foundations. It is the shape of tombs, of temples, of the Ark of the Covenant, the container of the unseeable, the untouchable, the eternal, locked in stone. Even in Christian tradition, the New Jerusalem described in Revelation is not a vague spiritual kingdom. It is a perfect cube. Its length and width and height are equal, the text says. Heaven given, form made measurable. And herein lies the mystery. The cube is the sacred vessel, but it is also the cage. To be within the cube is to be within matter dense, defined, finite. To exist in the cube is to exist in time, in gravity, in limitation. But to transcend it is to remember what you were before you had edges. The ancients understood this duality. They did not worship the cube. They respected it. They feared it. They walked its edges carefully, knowing that the cube could preserve the divine or trap it. In the language of alchemy, it is prima materia, the raw, inert substance awaiting transformation. To the Gnostics, it was the tomb of the soul, built by a blind demiurge who mistook structure for truth. And yet, they never tried to destroy it. Because the cube was not meant to be broken, it was meant to be understood. Its darkness is not evil. It is the veil. And only those who pass through its angles and faces with eyes open and soul awakened can ever find what lies beyond the cube. To understand the cube, one must understand its master. In every ancient cosmology, there is a God who governs limits, a force who binds, restricts, calcifies. He is the ruler of time, of karma, of death, of structure. In Roman myth, he was called Saturn. But Saturn was never just a planetary deity. He was and is the architect of the prison. Saturn governs the hard edge of reality. In astrology, he rules over boundaries, contracts, bones, discipline, delay. He grants mastery only after suffering and wisdom only after collapse. He is the planetary embodiment of the cube, structured, severe, unyielding. But behind the astrological symbols lies a deeper truth, one that secret traditions have preserved and feared. Because Saturn, in esoteric philosophy, is not just the Lord of Time. He is the warden of the material dimension. This is why the cube, the most stable of Platonic solids, is Saturn's sacred form. 6 sides, a structure that cannot collapse. In ritual magic, Saturn is invoked when constructing boundaries, imprisoning spirits, or sealing power within form. In Kabbalistic mysticism, Saturn is associated with the Sephira Bina, the womb of structure, but also the matrix of restriction. In the occult, he is seen as the initiator not because he gives light, but because he withholds it until the seeker is ready. Saturn does not deceive, he confines. And his symbol, the black cube, is the physical echo of metaphysical law. But the connection goes further. Astronomers have discovered something astonishing. At the North Pole of Saturn, a persistent hexagonal storm pattern, a 6-sided vortex, massive and perfect, a natural hexagon. And when a hexagon is unfolded into 3 dimensions, it becomes a cube. The cube literally in the sky. Ancient cultures may have known this intuitively. Long before telescopes, they saw Saturn not just as a star, but as a throne, the outermost visible planet, the last gate before the unknown. To pass beyond Saturn was to pass beyond the matrix of time and space, to leave the cube. But Saturn resists transcendence. His myths tell of him devouring his own children, the future, eating the present, time-consuming spirit. This was not madness, it was initiation. Every soul, before awakening, must be devoured by limitation, by form, by forgetting. The cube is Saturn's test. And the cult of Saturn, silent, enduring, still alive beneath the surface of power, knows this. That's why the black cube is found in the places they rule. Asterisk, at the center of Mecca. Asterisk bound to the foreheads of the faithful in Talit and Tefillin. Asterisk cast in the middle of major cities as black cube monuments. Asterisk hidden in corporate logos, finance buildings, and black monolithic art. They are not simply aesthetics. They are anchors. Saturn is not just in the sky. He is in the grid, in the clock, in the contract. He is in every system that tells you who you are, how much time you have, what your worth is. He is the ringed planet, beautiful, distant, cold, watching. But Saturn is not evil. He is the guardian of the threshold. He keeps the cube locked until you are ready to open it. And the cube, it is not a punishment, it is a test. To see if you can become more than shape, more than time, more than form. The cube is not hidden. It has never needed to be, because it stands not just in dark temples or occult tomes, but in open daylight, at the center of humanity's most sacred rituals. It is worn, walked around, prayed toward, and yet few ask what it really is. In Judaism, devout practitioners wrap tefillin, small black leather cubes, around the arm and forehead during morning prayers. Inside these cubes are verses from the Torah, handwritten on parchment, divine words bound in form. The ritual is ancient. The binding of the cube near the brain and the heart is not arbitrary. It is symbolic submission of thought, of will to the law. The black cube becomes both seal and gateway. In Islam, the holiest structure in the world is the Kaaba, literally the cube. It sits at the center of the Great Mosque in Mecca. Muslims across the earth face this point in daily prayer. Pilgrims circle it 7 times during Hajj, echoing the stars, the chakras, the layers of reality. But what is inside the Kaaba? Silence, emptiness, a cube of stone containing nothing. And yet it draws millions like a gravitational core of faith. In ancient times, it was said the Kaaba contained a black stone from the heavens, a fallen piece of sky, meteoritic, cosmic. The cube becomes not just a direction of prayer but a conduit, a stabilized portal between the above and the below. In Christianity, we see echoes again. The Ark of the Covenant, the container of divine presence, was built as a cuboid structure. Inside it, the tablets of the law, the word in stone placed inside a box, divinity encoded in density. And in the book of Revelation, the New Jerusalem is described as a perfect cube descending from heaven, its length, breadth, and height equal. It is not poetic, it is geometric. The city of God is structured, dimensioned, bound, the cube made divine. In Hinduism, temples are often constructed around a garbhagriha, a womb chamber, cubic in form, where the main deity resides. No decoration, no distraction. A room of power in the shape of containment, because in ritual, the cube becomes focus. It compresses infinity into a single point of interaction. Why does the divine so often reside in a box? Because matter is the test. Because spirit must agree to limitation before it can transcend it. The cube becomes the vessel of law, of energy, of presence. It is both a tabernacle and a tomb. A tabernacle because it holds the sacred. A tomb because the sacred must descend into form to awaken us. But the cube is not a passive shape. It changes us. To circle it, to wear it, to face it, is to enter alignment with it. And that is the danger and the power of its presence in ritual. The cube is not just where the sacred dwells. It is how the sacred is held and, if forgotten, how it is imprisoned. At first, the cube seems sacred, a stable form, a container of light, a vessel for the divine. But for the mystic, for the one who goes further, the cube begins to shift. What was once structure becomes barrier. What was once vessel becomes cell. Because the cube, ultimately, is not just the container of the sacred. It is the cage of the soul. This is the core of Gnostic cosmology, the idea that the material world is not creation, but entrapment. That spirit has been imprisoned in form, that the body is a tomb, that earth, this beautiful garden of sensation and solidity, is actually a construct, a simulation, a trap built by lesser gods who mistook structure for truth. In the Gnostic texts, the demiurge, the false god, builds the world with geometry and law. He forms it according to rule, measure, and hierarchy. He builds it like a machine, a cube, and inside it, he places the divine spark, you who have forgotten what you are. The cube is the matrix of matter, not in the pop culture sense, but in the original one, mater, the Latin word for mother, the womb, the illusion, the limit. In Plato's allegory of the cave, the prisoners sit in a box. They watch shadows on the wall, mistaking them for truth. The cave is not a physical place. It is the mind in chains. The soul in a cube, staring at reflections, unable to see the fire behind or the light beyond. In alchemy, this prison is known as prima materia, the base matter that must be purified. The philosopher's stone is not a rock. It is liberation, the process of turning lead, dense form, into gold, awakened essence. The cube is the lead, the grayness, the trap. Even modern physics, when stripped of materialist bias, begins to echo this. Matter, we now know, is mostly empty space. Atoms are fields of probability. Solidity is an illusion created by vibration. The cube, the very idea of fixed, impenetrable matter, is a trick of perception, a slowed frequency. What we call reality is a condensed waveform. In this view, the cube is not even real. It is a frequency lock. The soul, made of light and movement, has been compressed, bound in 3 dimensions, trapped in time, tethered to karma, memory, identity, ego, all of which form the walls of the inner cube. Why do secret traditions focus so much on breath, mantra, geometry, sound? Because these are the tools to destabilize the cube, to shake the walls, to remember that this prison was never sealed from the outside. The cube was built by consciousness, and it is consciousness that can unbuild it. You are not meant to escape the cube with violence. You are meant to awaken within it, and in doing so, make it transparent. Because what imprisons the soul is not stone, it is forgetting. The black cube was once hidden behind veils, carried in temples, worn on the forehead, placed beneath altars. Now it stands in the open, but no one sees it. It rises in the centers of our cities, polished, minimal, sacred in its silence. Monolithic blocks of dark geometry placed in financial districts, corporate headquarters, tech hubs. Statues without inscription, symbols without context, altars without gods. What is it doing there? And why do the powerful still build with the cube? Consider the black cube sculpture in Manhattan's Astor Place, a massive spinning cube standing as a public monument. Consider the black monolithic Apple Store cube in New York, a transparent veil surrounding the core of commerce and control. Consider the subtle way skyscrapers and monuments are framed in rigid cubes, reflecting power, permanence, and precision. These are not aesthetic choices. They are resonant symbols. The cube is the perfect emblem of containment, of system, of immutable law. It has no curves, no yielding, no flow. It is logic, structure, algorithm. This is why the black cube has become the fetish object of modern control. Not just physical, but digital. The very architecture of technology, of artificial intelligence, of data infrastructure, it all reflects the cube. Server farms, data centers, logic gates, machine learning models. Structured input, structured output. Every aspect of digital existence is cubical. Even our devices, the black rectangles in our pockets, glowing portals that feed us illusion, are miniaturized cubes. We hold them, we serve them, we stare into them. We live in a digital simulation framed in black geometry. The cube has digitized itself, and it doesn't end there. In film and television, the black cube is a recurring archetype. Asterisk, in 2001, A Space Odyssey, the monolith, a black rectangular prism, is the agent of evolution, the great unknown. It is worshipped, it is feared. Asterisk, in Interstellar, the tesseract appears a hypercube beyond time, where 5-dimensional consciousness manipulates 3D space. Asterisk, in Hellraiser, the lament configuration, a puzzle box unlocks forbidden realms. Asterisk, in Transformers, the Allspark, a cube of pure creative force, is the source of all life. These stories are not random, they remember something. They echo a primal truth. The black cube is not just a prison, it is a mechanism. It can trap or transform. But transformation requires awareness. And modern culture does not encourage awareness. It encourages immersion, entrapment, worship of the cube without questioning its presence. Secret societies once circled the cube in silence, seeking its center. Now the masses walk beneath it, eyes down, screens on, entranced. The cube has become the altar of unconsciousness. But here is the irony. The cube is still just a symbol. It cannot enslave the awakened. Its power lies only in your agreement with its form, your belief in its solidity, your submission to its angles. The moment you see it for what it is, the moment you remember its source, you begin to dissolve it. Because the black cube may be the prison, but it is also the puzzle. And every prison has a door. At a certain depth, mysticism and physics begin to whisper the same truths. The cube, that solid, silent figure of containment, is no longer just a religious symbol or an occult motif. It is the scaffold of space, the architecture of experience, the grid of perception itself. The universe, it turns out, may be built on something very much like a cube. In quantum field theory, the building blocks of matter are not solid particles, but oscillating fields. These vibrations manifest in specific, quantized ways, forming the illusion of structure, of density, of separateness. All of this unfolds within a field of measurable space, a lattice, a cube-like grid. Modern computer simulations, including those modeling particle physics, often use cubic lattice structures to represent space-time. This is not decorative, it is efficient, perfect, and eerily symbolic. Ancient mystics would say, of course, because the cube is the perfect containment of light slowed into form. In esoteric physics, especially in Hermetic and alchemical traditions, the material world is not a mistake. It is a compressed vibration. Spirit becomes matter through deceleration. Energy crystallizes. Light folds. What was infinite becomes measurable, contained, cubed. Even the sacred name of God in Hebrew mysticism, the Tetragrammaton, has been interpreted by Kabbalists as encoding the structure of dimensions. Certain diagrams of the tree of life, when rotated and geometrically expanded, form the metaphysical cube. Malkuth the earth at its base, Kether the crown beyond it, inaccessible, while one is trapped in linear form. Then there is the tesseract, the fourth dimensional cube, a cube folded into a higher dimension. In mathematics, it is pure geometry. In symbolism, it is something else, the key to transcendence, to moving beyond the prison of 3D form. The tesseract appears in esoteric art, sci-fi, quantum metaphysics, and sacred geometry always as a strange, ungraspable object that hints at something beyond. You cannot picture it completely, not from here, because it isn't meant for the eyes. It is a message from outside the box, trying to reach the mind inside it. In fractal geometry, the Mandelbox, a fractal cube, mirrors this same concept. An infinite cube within a cube within a cube, worlds folded in on themselves, endlessly recursive, like consciousness within consciousness, like karma, like illusion. Even the concept of a holographic universe, now entertained by cutting-edge physicists, suggests that the 3D world is a projection from a 2D surface, a flattened code creating the illusion of depth, a simulation, a cube of light woven from data. The ancient Hermetics said, as above, so below. Now, we say, as code, so cosmos. It's not that reality isn't real. It's that reality is structured. Like a cube, not as a prison designed to punish, but as a system designed to test. A spiritual Rubik's Cube, a matrix of experience through which the soul must move, rotate, and realign until the sides match, until the polarities reconcile, until the illusion breaks and the self emerges whole again. The cube was never a curse. It is a construct. And every construct can be understood, solved, and transcended, but only from the inside. The cube holds. That is its purpose: to stabilize, to contain, to endure. But the same force that holds can also confine. The question is not whether the cube is real. The question is, how do you get out of it? In nearly every esoteric tradition, from Hermeticism to Buddhism, from shamanism to modern Gnosticism, the path of awakening involves breaking form, transcending identity, dissolving the solid boundaries of self. Not to escape life, but to remember life beyond limitation. The cube is not evil, it is necessary. It gives shape to experience. It gives resistance to test the soul, but it was never meant to be permanent. The alchemists spoke of solve et coagula, dissolve and reform. They sought to break the stone of dense reality, to release the spirit trapped within. Their great work was not literal transmutation, but liberation from the cube of matter. Likewise, in yogic science, the Kundalini serpent coiled at the base of the spine represents the divine energy trapped in matter. As it rises through the chakras, it pierces through the 7 levels of the body cube, the earthly matrix, until it escapes through the crown, through the top of the box. In Tibetan Dzogchen, enlightenment is described as cutting through the mind, stops identifying with form and thought, and what remains is vast, luminous awareness. The walls fall away, the cube breaks. In Christian mysticism, the crucifixion of Christ is not just a sacrifice, it is the breaking of the body, the box, the final form. His resurrection is not into another cube, but into light, transfigured, weightless. In Egyptian cosmology, the journey through the duat, the underworld, is a passage through gates, boxes, traps, mirrors, tests. The soul must pass through 42 judges, 12 doors, countless forms, until it emerges into the field of reeds, the realm beyond illusion. The final gate, always a box. But the cube is not broken with force. It is broken with alignment. Meditation, breath, sacred geometry, sound, fasting, silence, devotion. Each of these are tools not to destroy the cube, but to phase shift through it, to change the frequency of perception until matter becomes transparent. And then you see, the cube was never fully solid. It was a lens, a filter, a testing ground. The real trap was never the structure, it was identification with it. When you believed you were the body, the ego, the name, the role, you were sealed in stone. When you begin to witness, not react, not resist, but witness, the walls thin. And when you begin to love not sentimentally, but as unified awareness, the box dissolves entirely. The prison fades. The cube breaks. And what you find is not escape, but a new kind of vision. You were never fully trapped. You were learning to remember what it means to be formless within form. In the end, the cube is not the enemy. It is the mirror. It reflects back to you your own edges, the boundaries of your belief, the shape of your fear, the rigidity of your self-concept. It shows you how you think, how you frame your life, how you contain your own infinite light. That's why it appears everywhere. In temples, in tombs, in cities, in your body, in your thoughts. Because the cube is not outside of you. You are inside it. And yet, even that is illusion. because the cube never truly held you. It only held the version of you that forgot what you were. This is the secret every initiate, every mystic, every silent guardian of the ancient schools knew. The cube does not collapse with force, it unfolds. When the soul is ready, the cube opens like a flower, its 6 faces flatten, revealing across the ultimate symbol of transcendence, of vertical and horizontal meeting in the heart. The box becomes the path, the trap becomes the teaching, the prison becomes the portal, and the black cube? It becomes light again, because it always was. The darkness was the shell, the silence was the instruction, the form was the initiation. And now, if you've seen it, if you've felt its presence in the world, in yourself, then you've already begun the return. The cube is not your enemy. It is your threshold. And beyond it, there is no shape. Only awareness, only presence, only the truth that cannot be named, but can be remembered. You were never just inside the cube. You were the one who placed yourself there, so you could one day step out